This is Whitebird. Before we let the bird out of its cage, please stick around because at the end of this video, we have an exclusive interview with Charlie Picerni, who played William Donner in this episode. While he doesn't remember much about his time on Knight Rider, he does talk about growing up in the industry and the wonderful people he met along the way. He's currently working on a project called Spaghetti Park, so we encourage you to learn more about it by clicking on the link in the description below. Now, let's take a look at another vintage Knight Rider promo. This one comes courtesy of TV36 from April of 1987. Enjoy.
Kit has come to TV36. Weeknights at 5, Knight Rider hits the air with all the authority of an overhead cam V8. David Hasselhoff stars in one of the fastest moving series in the history of television. Come along for the ride. Weeknights at 5. Weeknights at 6, Lee Majors is still in the driver's seat with a Fall Guy. Then at 7, James Garner stars in the Rockford Files. Weeknights at 5, Knight Rider. At 6, the Fall Guy. And at 7, the Rockford Files. Get a piece of the action on TV36.
Production 57330. Whitebird. This episode was written by Virginia Aldridge and directed by Winrich Colby. It had a working title of The Long Way Home, which, if you think about it, is quite clever considering Michael's original last name was Long. Anyways, this episode originally aired Friday night, March 4th, 1983 at 9 p.m. on NBC. It was filmed from February 3rd through 11th, 1983. It was the 18th episode to air and the 18th episode to be produced. The synopsis reads as follows. Michael's former fiance needs protection when she is wrongly implicated in a conspiracy involving her boss. Let's dig into this very special episode. We start with Stevie leaving her office building, and in the reflection we can see some of the Knight Rider crew over here to the left. This is actually an office building in downtown Burbank, and let's take a look at it. So here it is right here. Those are the doors she comes out, and in the episode we see the car come down. We can see Pass Avenue in the background. Downtown Burbank. So here we go. So we see that the vehicle, the Cadillac, that is going to take her away is coming around the bend. We can see Pass Avenue and we see this tall glass building here. Let's take another look. Yes, there we go. There's that glass building. Anyways, also in the background, hard to see, but we do have a Firebird, 82 or 83 Firebird making a turn right there. And then Stevie is arrested, and we turn to Michael. Once again, he is wearing his black coat with white piping, which we saw, starting in Hearts of Stone. We saw it in Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death, Topaz Connection. We see it here. So then he pulls into this restaurant about to go get some food, and in the background, what do we see? There's the tail end of the Gremlin once again. For those of you asking, I've noticed it in the comments below. This car is it's one of two things. It's either a crew member's car or it's a long-term rental from a product placement company. It's one of those two things. My guess is it's a crew vehicle, and they just needed it for the background. And this this red Camaro here, this is another vehicle that we start to see more and more often, and I'll try and point it out, but I think this is a crew member's vehicle as well. And I always like to pause on the newspapers. whenever we see a close-up of a newspaper. So once again, we have this one here. There is, as you can see, no date on it, right? Because it's a generic newspaper that they use in a lot of different productions. So they're not going to want to limit themselves by dating it or by, frankly, putting a location in, right? So this one just says Metro Final, the Times, serving a most progressive community. 6 parts, part 1, published daily, 38 pages, but we don't see any information about where it's located. But obviously they've grafted in this piece on Stevie here. And if you ever stop and read, let's read some of this newspaper, because it's always interesting about how generic it is. So listen to this. The facts regarding the situation remain the same, state the authorities. Details concerning the action have been given a preliminary investigation, but it felt that only by a more detailed study will the true facts become known. Thus, at this conference, all our governments found themselves in unanimous agreement regarding this undertaking. Arrangements for dealing with questions and disputes between the republics were further improved. Notice how generic that sounds. We move over here. Of no less importance was the common recognition shown of the fact that any menace from without to the peace of our continents concerns all of us, and therefore properly is a subject for consultation and cooperation. I mean, this is the type of stuff that would put you to sleep. The facts regarding the situation remain the same, state the authorities. And check this out right here. The facts regarding the situation remain the same, state the authorities. And just where we started, the facts remain regarding the situation remain the same, state the authorities. So someone was hired to create a bunch of gibberish, and then they would just keep repeating it. See, of no less importance, of no less importance, of no less importance. So there you go. There you go. It's kind of fun to see just how generic these papers, really are. Anyways, here we have Stevie and Kit for the first time, and it's something you wouldn't necessarily notice unless you were maybe familiar with Trans Ams, but they moved the seat up so much for Catherine Hickland to be able to be seen over the dashboard. This seat is all the way forward, and the backrest is near vertical, and you can tell that by how high the headrest is behind her head. So they had to do that because she's a lot smaller than David Hasselhoff, and they needed to get her in frame. So they bumped her all the way up as close as they could and as straight backed as they could. We've now arrived at Stevie's apartment building, and for those of you who like locations then and now, we can see this is at 4428 Moore Park Way in Toluca Lake. So this is 1983, and here is 2021. Well, technically 2019. That was the last time this street view was taken. But we can see that this tree looks to still be there. Let's look at in the bushes. Yep, they're for the most part still there. And this is what her apartment building looked like. So in the episode, they walk up this pathway and they go over, I believe they go over here. And then this is her apartment right back here. So after Michael leaves Stevie's apartment, we see this scene where Michael's about to have, flashbacks of his happier times with Stevie. And this is actually a scene taken from Night Moves. So if you recall in the climax of Night Moves, which we'll be covering next, there's a scene where the bad guys in a semi shoot Kit and sparks fly off. That's what this scene is from. That's why Kit has the rubber shell on, and you can see all the squibs on the hood about to pop from the sparks. Now I know what you're saying. This was, this episode was produced prior to Night Moves, so how can a scene filmed from Night Moves be in this episode? Well, it's simple. They finished filming Whitebird. They started filming Night Moves the very next week. Meanwhile, they were still editing together Whitebird. So what happened was, whenever they needed a scene of Kit driving, they took this scene from Night Moves and put it in here. That's all. Michael driving, again, getting ready to have the flashback of Stevie, and here's your kind of white wire alert, or lack of. We still have the gaff tape over it. It's these last couple episodes, it's harder to see because they're framing Michael. They're framing Hasselhoff a little closer, so you don't see as much of the roof, but we can still see it's still got that gaff tape there. We could also see a wire right here, probably a power wire for either the lights on the outside of the car, or maybe audio or some other equipment. By the way, they called the lights that they put on these cars on the outside, they called them the 9 lights. And they simply called it that because there were 9 giant bright lights that they would place on the outside of the car that they would use for filming. And those 9 lights would get so hot that it would actually bubble the paint on the Trans Am. It would melt weather stripping and whatnot. So they had to constantly be repairing that damage just from the 9 lights that they would place on the outside of the cars. And this is right after Michael tells Bonnie all about his history with Stevie. We can see the T-tops are off. We get a great look here at one of the mounting tabs for the auto roof. That's what this is right here. So this piece right here is the rubber weather stripping, the factory rubber weather stripping, and they placed this mount literally on top of that rubber weather stripping to flatten it. And that's how they were able to put the hinges on to make the auto roof go up. And there's one on the back too, although you can't really see it on this side. And for you, those of you replicating your cars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws along the passenger side to hold that sucker in place. And we have a great shot of Kit backing out. This is that 6th Trans Am that we talked about in our last episode, Chariot of Gold, the one that made a brief appearance. Here it is making another brief appearance in this scene, and then we'll see it a little bit more substantially later on in this episode, and that's when we're going to dig into it. But this is that 6th hardtop Trans Am, believed to be one of the train wreck cars right here. Yeah, and there it is coming out and spinning around, and this is where we get a good look. We can see that it's the hardtop. We can see the PMD seats inside, no tow bar. We still have the turn signal blackouts, but the main giveaway on this one is the hardtop. That's how you know that this is that 6th kit. Right now, as of this episode, this is the only hardtop car they have. They would get other hardtop cars in the future, at least 2 more, I believe, but this is the first. So here's Anthony Solon making a phone call to his guys, William Donner, and I think the other one's name is Blake. But what's interesting to note is this scene is actually being filmed inside of Arden Villa. And Arden Villa is the flag headquarters building, which we'll get into here in a few slides. But he's actually filming this in the foyer, I believe. Yeah, and so here we have Charles Picerni right here. He we just saw him in A Nice and Decent Little Town whenever Granny, Martha Haberstraw, turbo boost over his fruit truck and stuff went all over the ground. He was the driver. And and then this is the guy that plays Blake, Eddie Dono. But notice the license plate here. We have California 335 VCV. So remember that'll come into play here in a little bit. And now we have Kit ready to make a jump, and he's going to jump through this billboard sign. We can see we've got a stock Trans Am dash pad here, no Knight Rider dash. And here's the launch. This is the roll-caged acrylic windowed jump car. One thing you can't see in these photos, but they actually bolted the hubcaps on. They drilled a hole right in the middle of these hubcaps and put a bolt on there so they wouldn't fly off during the jumps. And he crashes through. I believe, if I remember correctly, Jack Gill told us at one point that this was one of Kit's longest turbo boosts at, I want to say, 140 feet. So it was pretty impressive, especially for back in the day. And I'm sure that record's been broken since, but well, maybe it hasn't. I don't know. But yeah, there we go. See Kit flying through the air. We can see the roll cage inside here. And yeah, let's see here. And then I always like this because the landing, they didn't, the editing and the landing was kind of weird. It was Michael. He wasn't holding onto the wheel. The wheel was flying everywhere. And it almost looked like he actually did land, but I always enjoy that. So now we're back to William Donner and Blake in the Oldsmobile, and we can see now instead of the, 335 VCV, now it's something 36 BA, whatever. It's all dirty, you can't read it. And no license plate on the back. Michael brings Stevie to one of the foundation retreats, I suppose. And for the longest time, we weren't able to figure out where this location was at. And I'm not sure we're 100% sure where it is now or where it was. But rumors have circulated that this is located or was located in Westlake Village, California. Doesn't appear that it still exists. Could be wrong, but if any of you know for sure where this was, or if you saw it in maybe another TV show in the 70s or 80s, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to see if this place is still around. And now Michael talking to Devin as he gets into his Mercedes with the hardtop on. We were talking it was in our last episode, Chariot of Gold, about the convertible Mercedes. And some of you have chimed in and said, well, the convertible and the hardtop are the same car. It's just the car had a removable hardtop that you could actually take off and turn into a convertible. I obviously am not as familiar with these Mercedes. I'm sure that you can. My only question is, and again, maybe you can mention in the comments, is take a look at this drip rail here. See how it's one continuous piece up the A pillar and all the way through the roof? If this was a removable hardtop, I would think we would see a brake here. Am I right or am I wrong? For those of you who are familiar with the Mercedes, maybe this is just the way it looked with the hardtop on, and there actually it does come off there. But we'll have to do some more digging. But I'm still not convinced that we're not dealing with two different Mercedes, a convertible and a hardtop one. Let me know. After Stevie's shot, Michael calls for Kit. Kit comes flying around the corner. This is the backup to the hero car, the one we own that's in the Peterson right now. And peek through the window, you can just barely see the sticker dash there and the round steering wheel. But what I always liked about this is there was a guy in the back seat right here holding the passenger door. It was unlatched, but he was holding it closed until Kit swung around. Then he released it to allow the door to fly open. See? There he goes. And then the door flies open. Just like that. And then we cut after he put Stevie in. We cut, and now we're at the hero car. And we're back to the same hospital we see in Chariot of Gold where Dr. Litton was staying. Now Stevie's there. And once again, this is not the hospital. This is the hotel that's adjacent to Universal Studios. So apparently it just looks like a hospital. All right. So Whitebird marks the debut of Arden Villa, Flag's new headquarters. So as you recall, for the first half of the season, well, up until this episode, they used Greystone Manor in Beverly Hills as the setting for the Flag headquarters. And well, you know what? Let's examine this a little bit, because I say they used it as Flag headquarters, but let's think about this. Let's go all the way back to the pilot. In the pilot, there wasn't Flag, right? There was the Knight Foundation and the Knight Estate. So if we were to examine this, I think it would be safe to say that both of these properties were owned by Knight Industries. Greystone Manor, the property that used Greystone Manor was the Knight Estate, Wilton Knight's estate, right? And this would be the headquarters for the Foundation for Law and Government. So, maybe it stands to reason that they had both properties. I don't know. I'm just making that stuff up. We'll see. But anyways, this is Arden Villa. This property was built over 100 years ago at this point, and in Pasadena, California. It's a huge sprawling estate. It actually just within the last couple months became a National Historic Site, which is great news for us Knight Rider fans. It means that no significant changes can happen to the property now. But it's still standing. It's gone through a number of different owners. It's gone from, luxurious and up to date to in disrepair to restored. But thankfully with that historic designation, it should be maintained for it should be preserved mostly as it is for the foreseeable future, really. And then Michael, he's here out on the back patio, and Devin comes out. He's wearing, just like he did in Hearts of Stone, he's back to wearing an ascot, no tie, button undone. And then they walk out, and this is the side of the house. So the driveway is up here to your left, and the front of the house is over here. This is the side that overlooks the pool, and then there's another step down, and there's a lily pond there. This house has been used in a million different productions. It's most famous probably for being used in Dynasty for a big cat fight in the lily pond. But and then this is the scene where Devin says, well, I hate to tell you this, Michael, but Stevie has a record, and the record is solicitation. And I remember as a kid thinking, well, what is solicitation? Does that mean she was just going around and, trying to sell people vacuum cleaners? Is that what she was doing? And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I realized that was the safe NBC kid-friendly way of saying prostitution. So that's why Michael has the reaction he does, not because, it was a charge like, bothering people with products. It was a prostitution charge. So that's why he got so angry here. But obviously in today's world, unfortunately, if this was a modern episode, they would just say prostitution and that would be fine. But back then they were a little bit more careful and sensitive, which, maybe we should all go back to that. Anyways, continuing. So now we have Michael breaking into Gilbert Cole's office. And here, this is a scene taken from Chariot of Gold. This is Kit parked outside the Helios estate. And we see this when Michael breaks into Helios. This is Harold Hal Frizzle. We mentioned him back in A Plush Ride. He's a famous Knight Rider background character actor. He's part of the stunt crew, but he appears in unspoken scenes throughout the series. He was big in Emergency, the 1970s Emergency TV show as well. But here he is making yet another cameo as a security guard. And Michael's managed to escape, although I don't know why he went out the rage entrance. That just does not sound good. So we're back the next day at Flag headquarters, sitting in... And then one thing I failed to mention is they filmed at Arden Villa for only 4 episodes of the series. The rest of it was stock footage. So those 4 episodes are obviously this one, and that's why we see all these different rooms inside of Arden Villa. They filmed this one, Brother's Keeper, A Knight in Shining Armor, and Goliath Returns. Those are the only ones. Every other episode used stock footage that they filmed during one of those 4 episodes being filmed. Let's take a look, because once again, let's see if there's any golden nuggets in here. So William Donner, at least they got that right. Miscellaneous Crime Report gives his address, 16830 Kinsbury. Occurred February 3rd, 1974 on a Sunday, it says, at, 10:20 p.m. Yeah, not much else. Oh, it gives his information. He drove a VW Carmen Ghia, 1972. That's about it. Yeah, most of it's kind of illegible, so still need to see. Michael and Stevie arrive back at the property, the retreat, and just wanted to point out, I think Kit kind of got a facelift or a nose job here, because notice how clean everything looks again. As the show was progressing throughout the first 13, 15 episodes, the front end was getting, the covers weren't sitting nearly as plush, the fiberglass wasn't lined up. So I think they did a little work on Kit's front end to kind of get everything lined back up, because after all, this is the hero car and they want it to look good. And then this is some really sloppy editing in terms of for the crew here. But we see Kit parked here, and we see the Oldsmobile coming up about to hit Kit. And then immediately, so it's like this, and immediately Kit just is back there. You don't even see him move. So he's there, and then immediately he's back here, and the Oldsmobile is coming up this little hill. We're back to the 335 VCV. And then it crashes into this wall and then immediately flips over. So the whole editing of the scene is really, really sloppy, but gets the job done, I guess. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this car. This is the 6th Trans Am to be seen as Kit. So what do we know about this car? Well, we know it was a 1983 model. We know that it had power windows. We know it had a rear defrost, and we know that it had it was a hardtop, no T-tops. Other than that, the details are somewhat scarce. It did have cruise control as well. We're close to figuring out what the VIN of this car is. We have it within a range. We just haven't nailed it down yet. And as I mentioned in our previous episode, Chariot of Gold, if there were any cars outside of the 5 originals that we know survived, if there are any others that survived, this would be the one that survived. And we think that because we have pictures of it, what we believe to be a year and a half after the wrecking ball photos were taken. So let's take another look here, coming around. And by the way, this whole scene is filmed. This was filmed for Chariot of Gold. So as you recall, in Chariot of Gold, we showed a brief scene of this car coming around a bend, and this is that scene extended. So they just took the footage that they filmed for Chariot of Gold and showed it here. In fact, if we go back a scene, we can see that Michael's stunt double is wearing the same tweed jacket with tan accents that Michael wore in Chariot of Gold. And if you look back here, you get an okay look at the rear defrost line right there. So that's how we know. Eventually, now this car, they would change out a few things. The rear hatch would get changed out to a clear rear hatch. Not too soon. This rear defrost hatch would last into season 2. But yeah. Okay, so now we're at the airfield, and Kit's ready to jump a fence. This is the point of view shot. Once again, we've got Kit with a stock dashboard inside. And here, once again, is that red Camaro right here, the same one we saw earlier in the episode. And now we switch to the flivver car. And this is one of the better looks we get at this flivver car if we zoom in. So we can see some of the dune buggy chassis under the rear end. And we see the dune buggy roll cage up here, which, as you can see, is not form-fitting to the Trans Am shell in any way. And we've got the guy here with the helmet on. And then here he goes, getting ready to launch. Launches up in the air. Almost looks like the front bumper was broken off and hastily kind of glued back on. Flying through the air, get a great look. You can actually see daylight through the bottom because it's it's just a dune buggy. There we go, flying. And then look at that. Look how he hits. This almost makes me think that they filmed this multiple times because of that damage we saw in the air on the front end. They probably filmed it twice, and both times it kind of landed like that. So they said, well, I guess we're going to go with it. This is, by the way, Brackett Airfield in Verne, California, the same one they used in Topaz Connection. And I believe coming up we can get a good look at the air tower, the controller tower. So here's Kit coming through. This is, once again, that hardtop car. And we've got some kind of, I think this is part of the adhesive for the turn signal blackout that we see here, this white blur under there. But yeah, here we go. This is still that 6 hardtop Trans Am, and now we get a really good look at those defrost lines right there. So there's the major line, and then all the ones running across the glass right there. And then Kit getting ready to turbo boost into the plane. This is, it's kind of hard to see this shot here, but this is, once again, the roll cage acrylic window jump car. We see a nice thick roll cage bar across the top here. Jumps, getting ready to hit the plane, and then we have the point of view shot. We can see here that it's bent the fender in already, which is not surprising. Yeah, and see, there's the carnage. Here's that air tower. That's the same one we see in, I keep calling it air tower, the controller's tower. Same one we see in Topaz Connection. Anyways, you could see a little bit of the ramp down here in the bottom corner. And then the destruction. If you watch this, it almost looks like the Trans Am is kind of attached to the plane at one point, because the plane kind of drags Kit around like that. And one other thing to note, if we look right here, it's really hard to see in this screen grab. But remember back in A Nice and Decent Little Town, I showed you the fender that had 2 holes in it. Well, now that fender with 2 holes is on the jump car. It wasn't on the jump car in that episode, but it's again just showing how much they really swap parts between cars. Seats, fenders, hoods. I mean, everything got mixed up. And then we cut to Michael in the backup to the hero car, and this is one of the better times we get to see this sticker dash with the round steering wheel. We've got stickers under here instead of LED arrays, and we open the door, and we've got some stickers under here. These are actually switches. Since this is our car, we can see that some of these still survive to this day. So these are power switches for some of the car's functions. And then, of course, we've got some tape on the side here and a wire and different things like that. And I always like this, just the look on his face about what's about to happen. This is Don Galloway. He reappears again in season 3, Night in Retreat. And should be noted, Catherine Hickland obviously will return in Let It Be Me and Scent of Roses, thus completing the White Bird trilogy that starts here. Yeah, give him a whack. Don't actually hit him. Get real close to him there, Michael. Don't hit him. And then we see Stevie leaving in a police car. And this is very reminiscent of how we'll see her leave in Let It Be Me, out the back seat of a station wagon. So it was a theme they were going with. Obviously, they couldn't do that in Scent of Roses because, spoiler alert, she dies. But they do it here, and they do it in Let It Be Me. Just a nice little piece of continuity there. And Michael's sad. So Kit tells, Michael wonders if Stevie really knew that he was Michael Long, and Kit says, well, look in the glove compartment. So he gets ready to open the glove compartment. This is your factory Trans Am center console glove box. But what's interesting is you can see here the fiberglass lower console is in place in this scene, but there's no electronics there. It's just the cutout for where the electronics would be and a little mounting tab right there. But otherwise, the panel's missing. The fiberglass is there. We are back permanently to this type of ending. The epilogue with Wilton Knight is now 100% gone. We won't see it again in the entire series, but it's now replaced with this type of ending, which frankly I always enjoy more, and I think it looks better.
Kind of more. I've always got my work on my own. I'm probably one of the few stuntmen that never got a job through a stuntman. I always got it my own way. Stunts Unlimited. We started that in 1971. I was one of the original members. We had 14 guys, and now there's only 2 original members left, and that's me and a guy named Buddy Joe Hooker. Okay. And we're the only 2 original members left. And no, I don't get work through them. I get work on my own. Yeah. I know. I always figured it out from the time I got in the business. If that guy can do it, then I can do it. Yeah. So I didn't rely on another stuntman to get work. I got it on my own. That's awesome. Now there are guys that know me, and if I want to work, like my wife was an actress and also does stunts, so I'll call guys and if they can get her on, and they wind up putting me on too. So yeah, that's cool. But I never look for work from other people. That's awesome. What would you say is like what you like the most about your work, and maybe what you like the least about it? What I like the least about it? Yeah. I like the least about that are in it, and there's a lot of souls in it. But what I like the most about it is the great people that you meet, and the great locations that you go on. Yeah. And you work with a lot of people. I worked in Bulgaria, Budapest, Australia, and being in the business so long, there's always at least one or two people that know me in the crew.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to have that people still know me and they say nice things about me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, and you can quote me, a lot of in the business, and I can name them if you want. But there's a lot of great people. Mike Connors is one of the greatest people I met. He did Mannix. Telly Savalas did Kojak. One of the best people you can meet. David Jansen did The Fugitive. One of the greatest. I can go on. Mel Gibson, terrific.
Yeah.
I can go on and on with the good people. Bob Urich did a show called Vegas. One of the best people I ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze, one of the greatest guys I ever met.
Yeah.
I can go on and on. Damn, Stephen Cannell, first of all, was great. I did a lot of shows. See, I started directing for Aaron Spelling and Leonard Goldberg. And then I got an agent. I never had an agent after that or before that, but I got this agent and he hooked me up with Stephen Cannell at the time. And Stephen Cannell was great. So I got hooked up and I started doing Hardcastle McCormick and different shows with Stephen Cannell. He liked my work. And then I got Hunter, and Fred Dreyer is one of the good guys. He's really a good guy. And Stephanie, the girl on the show.
Yeah.
She was great. So a really good experience there. I did a lot of them. I did one and then I did more because they liked what I did. And I proved myself as a director. You know, before I started directing, or maybe when I started directing, after I did Starsky and Hutch, I went to a film school. I went to another film school. I went to an acting class, a really good acting class in Beverly Hills. And my wife knew the coach and she said he's really good. So I went there and I worked with really top actors. And I worked as an actor, doing scenes, and as a director, directing the actors. So I was there 3 years. So I learned the approach you make with an actor.
Yeah.
So what I do in real movies, I put like Die Hard and a lot of movies I did, I put myself in that situation. And I've been in a lot of situations in my life that are comparable to real movie stuff.
Yeah.
Like what would Bruce Willis do in a Die Hard scene? What would Mel Gibson do when he's thrown in the San Pedro Bay harbor and he sees his wife dead? If you remember the movie. Yeah. And he's in a straitjacket and he sees her dead. And then he gets out of the straitjacket. He comes up from the parking lot and he sees the two guys that killed him. What would I do in a situation like that? Not a Hollywood fight. What I would do is I look back, and if I can compare anything that happened in my life, well, it did. It was a fight that I had in Jamaica, New York, and I did this. I grabbed the guy, threw his head through a car window, opened the car door, and smashed his head in the car. And he might still be laying there for all I know. I don't know. But this is what I did in that fight. And Mel Gibson did that, and they don't, Dick Donner directed, they don't question me because they say, wow, that really fits this scene.
Yeah, no, that's
because
awesome.
I put myself in that situation. What would Bruce Willis do when he's confronted by this terrorist in his friggin' building? How would he get out of it? How would he fight? You know,
Yeah.
Guy does martial arts, and Bruce is nothing but a cop that knows, just
basically
brutal fight stuff. So I put that in a situation, and that's how I coordinate it. I don't just look. I can coordinate any fight in 2 minutes, but I think about it. And what I also do is I'll bring the actors in and let them see what I'm doing, because you'll get input from them. You'll get a lot of input from their character, what they would do.
Yeah.
And you use them as much as you can.
That's
the only thing about Night Rider I remember is I did a part, me and my friend Eddie Dono, we did a thing in the car, and I had some dialogue and stuff, and the car goes a chase scene, it gets wrecked and all that. But I don't have too many stories about Night Rider, like I said before, because it wasn't one of my shows.
I'm sure Jack does. Didn't Jack drive the car?
Jack Gill drove the car.
Yeah, Jack Gill.
Yeah. He can drive.
An excellent. Him and his brother are really.
They're
in fact,
good.
they're both from Georgia originally.
Oh yes, I did.
Yeah,
I
they're
did
from
remember
Georgia.
that.
All right.
Yeah, awesome.
That's great.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. It's great talking to you guys.
All right, Eric. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot.
Talk to you
Take
later.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And now, while we listen to Joe's selection of Knight Rider music that we received directly from Don Peake himself, we'd like to thank these Patreon supporters. Look at you guys scrolling up the screen to my right. Wait a minute, how can you tell which side is my right, since you can't see me because I'm not on camera? Oh well, you know what I mean. We're featuring these fine supporters at our Knight Rider Prop Restorer level. Thank you very much for your support. And for those of you at the Knight Rider History Hunter level, we're recognizing you right now in the description. Now, if you enjoyed seeing this golden nugget of Knight Rider history being rescued from obscurity, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support would empower us to bring you even more of these historical nuggets. We are the Knight Rider Historians. Till next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.